Driving, proud to be supported by Diamond Bright, protecting, cleaning and caring for the furious fleet and for yours, with 10% off using code FD10. Follow the links in the description below. Hello and welcome to Furious Driving, and today I'm at the wheel of something new and something exciting, an all-new EV, a car to rival the Tesla 3 and maybe draw you away from your BMW 3 Series or Mercedes C-Class. This is the BYD Seal, and rather impressively, this particular model is the all-wheel drive excellence, which does 0 to 60 in 3.8 seconds, which is quite impressive. If you don't know who BYD are, they are the biggest company you've never heard of. They've been around since 1995, have 600,000 staff worldwide, and they're the second biggest car battery manufacturer in the world. They have a long history of battery tech. They made the batteries, those Nokias that will still be charged up in a drawer somewhere even now. As well as making parts and assembling products for most big brands, more than half of all iPads are made by them. You almost certainly own something BYD have made, even if you don't know it. Their first car was in 2003 and they stopped building ICE cars in 2022. The Seal is their first vehicle to utilise the innovative cell-to-body technology, which uses a cobalt-free LFP blade battery. It's built on their advanced E-Platform 3.0, which has an 8-in-1 powertrain which bundles the vehicle control unit, battery management system, power distribution unit, drive motor, motor controller, transmission, DC to DC onboard charger, all into one single unit. It's a very good looking car. BYD call their design language Ocean X, and the car's names follow that theme, the seal and the dolphin. The design team was led by Wolfgang Egger, ex of Alfa Romeo, Lancia and Seat, and head of Alfa's design when the 156 and 8C were created, so expect flowing lines, a strong face and beautifully resolved rear end, and you won't be disappointed. Also expect some odd marketing guff, the X-shaped face representing the ocean and the unknown, and the contours provide a sense of momentum and the waves, apparently. Now, as you'd expect, a car like this is absolutely bristling with technology and features and fun stuff. Inside the cabin, we've got these amazing leather seats with a beautiful crisscross diamond stitching pattern, and the front seats are cooled and heated on both models. Technology-wise, we've got everything focusing around these two screens. This is a love it or hate it kind of situation again. This screen, though, does have a bit of a party piece because you can push this button on the steering wheel and around it goes. If you prefer a vertical screen to change your dashboard layout, you can do that with it. Or you can have it back to your regular horizontal one if that's what you prefer. There are only two trim levels, design and excellence, and those are related to the powertrain system as much as the kit you get in the car. There's only a £3,000 difference between the two, and a lot of that is down to the fact that the design is a 230 kilowatt rear-wheel drive car, and the excellence is a 380 kilowatt all-wheel drive, both axle motored car. And you do get a few extra things like the ITAC traction control stability system is standard on this car, the excellence. And something a lot of people are not going to like, me included I'm afraid, is that there are no physical buttons apart from what's on the steering wheel and your stalks. So the heater and things like that are all on the screen, and I'm really not a fan of this at all. I do like the big clear screen, that is lovely definition, and the sat-nav and everything is really, really clear, although I have managed to delete the route. So now I'm actually doing a lap of the UK. Yeah, it should be fine. But we have got heated and cooled front seats, we've got a heated steering wheel, and in the excellence we've got frequency adaptive dampers, making the thing just ride actually very well indeed. I mean, this is not the best road in the world for really experiencing the full-on everything of the car. Riding along in traffic right now, it's actually very comfortable. It feels like a firmly sprung, sportily sprung car. We don't have one pedal braking in this car, but we do have two stages of regen, two different levels of how effectively it'll slow the car down when you lift your foot off the accelerator. Do that quickly right now. Yeah, that's just literally dropping off the accelerator, and it slows the car down for you and regenerates a bit more power, which is nice. Now, important questions. The tea shop, it's absolutely epic. There is a ton of room for everything you could possibly want to be snacking off on here. It's interestingly a leather effect kind of rubbery stuff, which is very visually effective until you touch it and you realise it's actually not leather at all. Two-tone contrast stitching does make it look like it might be. Now, BYD are one of those companies that just keep on top of things all the time. They keep on updating. So to that end, they've already put an update out for this car. So since the first cars have been driven in the UK, which was only a matter of weeks ago, they've changed the steering weight, they've changed the sensitivity of the parking sensors and those kind of things. They've changed the tone, the warning tone, because people thought it was too aggressive. And they've also dialed back the lane keep assist. Let's drift over this white line right now. Oh, it's just twitching the wheel a bit. That's actually far less aggressive than anything I've come across before. I still don't actually like it, but it's, yeah, a lot less intrusive. I still don't like it, but I can live with that a lot more than many systems that I've driven. The iTac traction control is very impressive and get you moving safely even on snow and ice, which is very impressive work. Below the very, very impressive T-shelf with a nice dual colour stitching in it and the big 15.6-inch screen, we've got this full width air vent and textured plasticky metally looking stuff. Let's rotate the screen so we can then reveal more air vents, more of this lovely shaped stuff and texture stuff. It looks very impressive with lots of little satin metal effect stuff everywhere. Again, looks really nice. And below that, this is quite an unusual touch, which I'm actually quite a fan of. We've got this kind of Alcantara felty material on this bulged out area of the dashboard. Slightly soft touch. Looks and feels very nice. I like it a lot. That does kind of intrude a little way, but gives it a lovely flowing shape to the dashboard. So I know a lot of people are going to be more interested in what it's like to be in than the driving dynamics, and so that does make it kind of a cool place to be. On the doors, we've got a lot of stuff going on as well. That felty Alcantara-like material, which I'm sure has got a really specific trade name, and you've got one of the 12 Dynaudio speakers up here as well. There are a total of a dozen speakers, from tweeters to subwoofers, spanning the car. So you've got a full immersive surround sound. And as someone who does love decent car audio, because the car is like the best place to listen to music, that is a good thing to hear. It really is a good thing to hear in both senses of the word. In the centre, we've actually got a pair of inductive charging pads, which is really handy for both you and your passenger. You can drop your phone in there. Now, behind our twin inductive charge areas, we have got a tiny little crystalline stubby gear selector for reverse, neutral drive, the start-stop button, and of course park at the end. You know which gear you're in or which direction you're in because it illuminates just there. And if you go into reverse, you do get a full reverse camera and top-down view of what the car is doing, complete with direction view of what's happening when you turn the wheel. And behind the area, we've got a couple of decent sized cup holders which you can actually push the button. This is a fun game to play. And behind that, we have got a decent sized cubby hole, very, very deep indeed for putting stuff in. We've got a good sized glove box, and we've got some sort of okay pockets in the doors. One thing to note though is these armrests are very low. If you're someone who likes to drive with your arms on the armrest, this isn't too comfortable. Now, under the front of the car, we have BYD's first ever frunk or fruit. It's not a huge amount of space considering the battery and everything is well underneath the car, but it does give you a little bit more storage for an overnight bag, charging cables, or whatever else you might want to need. Around the back of the car, we have this lovely LED droplet design which flows across the back of the car. Looks very, very elegant indeed. Very pretty. Looks good on the black cars. Looks pretty nice on lighter colour cars as well. The BYD Seal name, and this one, the 3.8S, this is actually a reference to the 0 to 60 time of this particular model. This is a saloon, not a hatch, surprisingly. I suppose it aids with the rigidity of the car. But down here we have got a decent sized boot which goes back a very long way, but it's not that tall. Underneath the floor we have got a little more storage, but only a little cubby area, so it's not proper estate car levels of practicality. We've got a little cubby on the left, we've got a subwoofer on the right. That is our load space back here. These little door handles are quite interesting. They sit flush when the car is parked or in motion, but when you pull up and unlock it, they pop out so you can get in. The back of the car is very spacious because the battery pack is completely flat and there's no transmission tunnel. You've got a lot of space, and even though the roof line is quite low, this glass roof means that you've got a load of headroom and it feels like you're, well, partly outside, partly in some kind of immersive tank looking at the world as if it's a theme ride. It is very cool actually. I like this quite a lot. This heavy tint, I would expect, means it doesn't get too hot in here during the summertime. And although we've got quite a high shoulder line on the doors, we've also got this full panoramic roof which makes the whole thing feel really light and airy, and visibility is surprisingly good. It's got a short overhang on the bonnet, and so although it does drop off quite rapidly, you've got lots of sensors and things and rear view cameras and top down cameras and everything you could possibly want, which is good because you've got 19-inch rims and low profile tyres and you don't want to be bashing them. Speaking of colours, there are 6. Now, being an electric car, you're going to want to know, has it got the range? And yes, it really does have quite a good range. The trade-off from the more performance of the all-wheel drive they're in right now is that you don't go quite as far. You can do about 354 miles in the two-wheel drive, and you can do about 320 odd in the all-wheel drive. In ideal conditions, of course. Now, the battery is quite an impressive thing in this car. It's actually part of the structure of the machine. That's some impressive pickup. They call it cell to body, which is the third generation of battery type. The first type was called cell to module, which is where the battery was cosseted and protected deep within the car inside many layers to keep it safe in the event of any kind of accident or incident. Then the next generation along was cell to pack, which is what most cars are using at the moment, which is where the battery is a separate pack screwed into the bottom of the car, and it's its own separate safe unit, but it is a separate and safe unit. This has gone very Lotus in the fact that the Blade battery, which is BYD's own, they've done a number of things with the Blade battery. First of all, they've made it more module dense. They've packed things in more tightly, which means you get more bang for your buck, more power for the space you're taking in the car. They've done clever things to make the battery last longer in terms of the battery life when you're using it and the battery life cycle as well. The cell itself, the entire overall battery, is housed in a composite double skin, which makes it incredibly strong, and that is then screwed into the bottom of the car where it becomes part of the car's structure, strengthening the vehicle. In fact, they say that the strength of the battery within the car's structure actually improves its crash structure for front and side impacts. To that end, they showed us this incredible crash footage where one of these was crashed sideways, first on the driver's side, then on the passenger side. The battery was then removed from the car, put in another car, and then drove away undamaged. And in addition to all of the clever battery technology keeping the car strong and safe and structurally secure, BYD fit a heat pump as standard on every car in their range, not just the Seal, which means that the battery lasts better in the hot and cold weather. It's tested down to -30 and up to +60 degrees centigrade. Now we hit a dual carriageway where we can actually experience that 0 to 60 acceleration. So here we go. Wow, can't even accelerate to 60 because the thing just launches far too fast. That is some quite incredible traction off the line. Now, you might be wanting to look at the all-wheel drive version for the rapid acceleration. Certainly it helps put all that masses of torque onto the ground more easily. Personally, I'm more of a fan of all-wheel drive in a saloon or an estate car because it just means you give this amazing mountain goat-like traction in all situations. Of course, if additional range is your goal, then the two-wheel drive, the rear-wheel drive, will be the one to go for. Some people prefer it because it feels a little bit lighter and more nimble. We'll drive on in a second and have a feel. This car, though, does hide its weight very well. It certainly doesn't feel like a heavy battery-laden car. It handles like a big sports saloon rather than a heavy sports saloon, and certainly it handles better than pretty much any SUV I've driven. Now, although it doesn't have 1-foot braking, it is still sharp enough on the regen that you can just lift off and it will slow down into a corner quite effectively in most situations. But overall, I'm actually rather impressed with this car. It's got a lovely, airy, spacious feeling. The interior feels very nice and very well put together. The seats are astonishingly comfortable. I'm not a fan of the lack of buttons, real buttons, and that would perhaps put me off buying one. But then, considering that the nearest direct rival is going to be a Tesla 3, doesn't have any buttons either, if you're in the market for something like this, then perhaps that's not an issue to you. But personally, my big takeaway would be I want ventilation buttons along there. So I have just quickly jumped into the rear-wheel drive design. It's slightly less powerful and only rear-wheel drive, of course, but that's where things start to change. It's rear-wheel drive and technically slightly lower spec, but interestingly, it's a very different feeling car. It feels a lot lighter. The steering feels, sticking to sports steering, comfort steering at the moment. Like the Excellence we were driving a second ago, this is also a black interior. There are only two interior colours you can have. There's a pale blue or there's this black. I think I prefer the pale blue if I'm going to be honest. I like a more interesting interior. But this, although it is ostensibly the same car, the lack of weight in the nose does mean it feels certainly a little bit lighter, a little bit different. I think I might actually be inclined to go for this. I think you could probably have a little bit more fun in a twisty back road with this one. It just feels lighter and a bit more nimble. Yeah, this does feel a very different car indeed. This feels like a car. This feels like more of a car you can have a play with and just steer it on the throttle a bit more. So what we lack in our 0 to 60 of about 2 seconds, we do make up for in certainly a feeling of lightness and nimbleness, as well as the additional range. And I was going to say I would plump for the all-wheel drive, but just after a few moments in this car, I'm kind of thinking that perhaps the two-wheel drive lighter car is just a bit more enjoyable on the road, actually. A bit more of a nimble sports car feel to the thing. I actually really like this. Now the other difference with this, as well as the lack of motors at the front and of course the lighter white at the front, is the suspension. Because whereas the Excellence is equipped with its variable adaptive dampers which do clever things all the time, this has got more standard fixed dampers which are obviously less clever than that. But the ride is not significantly worse for it. Driving down these slightly bumpy but relatively quick B roads, okay, relatively quick is now a subjective statement as I'm stuck behind a VW up, the car still feels controlled, it still feels light, it still hides the bulk of that big battery that we're sitting on right now. Well, I hope you found this look around the BYD Seal interesting. If you've been considering a new car, whether it's an ICE thing like a Mercedes or a BMW or a Tesla Model 3, maybe this has changed your opinion, I don't know, let me know what you think. But for now, that's all from me. Hope you've enjoyed this, like and subscribe if you have, if not keep it to yourself. Otherwise, I'll see you again next time driving something completely different.